and celebrate the life of their much cherished Sandy. On behalf of her family, I'd like to extend a warm thank you to each one of you for the gift of your presence here this afternoon. Being here in person, surrounding them with your loving light, is simply priceless. They would also like to thank the people who couldn't attend but are here with them via live stream, especially her sister, Jean. They are also filled with heartfelt gratitude for the outpouring of support by friends and family during the last few days. It has helped them deal with their loss in ways words can never express. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We honor a woman who was very special in the lives of her family and friends. Today we will take time to share a few stories, cry a little, even laugh a little, as we reflect on the impact her absence will have on each one of you. Sandy was a treasure that was valued by many. You can tell that by this room alone. Losing someone you loved as much as you did her is like losing a piece of yourselves. I asked Paul how he was holding up. He says, I sleep like a baby. I get up, I cry for a while, I get up, I go back to bed and cry a little bit more. I know she's a tremendous loss in his life and her entire family. But please remember that the true essence of her love has left a handprint on your hearts and indelible memories of love that will be a part of you forevermore. May you find solace knowing that the impact her life had on all those who knew her will continue to be a shining beacon in this world for many years to come. As part of this remembrance, I will share a few reflections shared with me by her family, and throughout the service, I'll extend an invitation to anyone who would like to share a favorite story or remembrance of your own. I know that's a lot to ask, and it can be hard to do, especially with a room full of people. But it would mean a lot to the family if anybody, a couple people would, at the appropriate time, share a story or two. There were so many stories. I told them I couldn't begin to include them all, and just even what they told me in the service, or we'll go way over time and miss the reception altogether. But since the service is being live streamed, please come up to the podium to speak. I will ask you to do that. Your words don't have to be poetic or eloquent, just words spoken from your heart. And that's what matters, and that's what people will hear. During the final days of her mother's life, Sandy was at her side. It was a time of great reflection for both of them. As a special gift to Sandy, her friends, the Fremont folks, they were two UNL students who wrote a beautiful song as a tribute. The first part of the song reflects on Sandy's mother's last full moon of her life, followed by a poignant foretelling of Sandy's last full moon. The song is aptly titled, as you can probably guess, Last Full Moon. Let's take a few minutes now and listen to it. Such a sweet song. Thank you, Paul, for sharing it with all of us. Sandy was born in Montgomery, Alabama on February 16, 1948. Her parents were Eldon J. and Avis Marie Marcus Arnold. She grew up with her two brothers, Ralph and Mark, along with her two sisters, Shirley and Jean. Her father was in the Air Force, which meant she and her siblings grew up as Air Force brats, living in several different places throughout their lives, such as Florida, Tennessee, Colorado, and Creston, Iowa, the place Sandy referred to as her hometown because that's where she started school. The Arnold family also lived in Newfoundland for a while, where Sandy remembers going out into the wilderness where the bears went to hunt, and they went to pick berries, where the bears were to hunt. Excuse me, let me start over. Out to the wilderness where the bears were to hunt and pick blueberries, not knowing if they would encounter one of these bears. Because as I understand, I think bears like blueberries as well. But must have been the beginning of her adventurous nature. Once her dad retired from the Air Force, the family settled in Lincoln. To share her reflections on what it was like growing up with Sandy, her sister Jean Arnold, who lives in Wellington, New Zealand, and couldn't be here today, made a special video tribute for the family, and they would like to share it with all of you here today.
Good afternoon. I'm Jean, Sandy's sister. So my memories of Sandy go way back, and if I can't remember, Sandy could tell me. I've heard that when Mom had to stay in hospital after I was born and Dad brought me home as a newborn, Sandy took me in her arms and cared for me. 11-year-old Sandy would take me out to play with the neighborhood kids in St. John's, Newfoundland, and sat me down behind the backstop while she went to bat. I would have been 2 or 3 months old at that time. After she hit the ball, play would pause while she collected me and ran to first base. She thought she was so lucky to have a real baby when her friends had to pretend with just baby dolls. I don't remember any of that myself, but my memories of sharing a room with Sandy and Shirley and jumping from bed to escape imaginary alligators is a fond one. I wasn't quite so happy about being locked in a closet and told there was a tiger in there with me while Sandy and Shirley snarled and growled outside. When Sandy was at high school and brought home a handsome young football player, she told me later how annoyed she was when I bounded into the living room, bounced onto his lap, and gave him a kiss before she even had. I don't remember that, but Sandy did. Sandy and Paul married when I was just 5, and suddenly I only had one sister to share a bedroom with. Sandy Arnold changed her name to Sandy Myers, and then she was gone. I do remember being in the back seat of Sandy's car with Mom. I was misbehaving somehow. Don't ask me how. I don't understand that. But Sandy turned around and said, "Knock it off." I protested and said, "You can't tell me what to do. You're not my sister anymore." I'm glad she got over the initial sting of that and continued to love me. Over the years, we've shared many good times and some not so good, of course. In my junior high and high school years, Sandy took me on canoeing trips on the Platte River. We'd camp on sandbars, let the boys wash dishes with sand and river water, learn lessons about putting the canoe into the water before we loaded it with heavy gear, and learn to stake down the tent more firmly in windstorms. On one trip down the Platte, the wind was blowing so hard there were whitecaps coming towards us, thunder and lightning around us. We got to the shore, but I refused to get out of the canoe because the bank was crawling with spiders. Petite Sandy lifted me out of the canoe and carried me to safety on the shore. At the end of the trips, Paul would always be waiting for us at the designated pull-out point. My older siblings moved around the country often, with Dad being in the Air Force, but Dad retired when I was young, so I don't remember getting to ever move. All my other siblings stayed put pretty much, but I only wanted to travel. I remember Sandy being there at many departures and welcome homes. So many memories of Sandy and the family. When the growing family surpassed the capacity of my mom and dad's house at which to celebrate holidays and birthdays, Sandy and Paul had everyone to their place. Sandy was keen on genealogy and would chart the family tree, spending hours researching in historical societies, talking to relatives at family reunions, and scouring graveyards to piece together more of the family history. She was so good at figuring out puzzles like this, and she traced our family back to the 1700s. Any project she took on, she carried it out thoroughly with dynamism, creativity, and humor. In later years, because of her disease and the pandemic, the family gatherings weren't always possible. But Debbie, Troy, and Trent have worked to keep up traditions. Role reversals can be tough. It nearly broke my heart when I found myself spoon-feeding Sandy in early January while I was back home. But aging and disability are not new. Perhaps they can somehow be considered to be good, in that they help us more readily accept and even welcome the inevitable end of life. Without Sandy, I would never have known a whole cast of characters who have enriched my life. Paul and his family of origin, Debbie, Troy, Trent, their spouses and kids, and their kids, and their kids, partners, friends, and colleagues. At different times in her life, Sandy was like a mother to me, a confidant, an advisor, and because of dementia, even a stranger. But I know that she'll be my sister forever. Thanks for coming to honor Sandy today.
I know that Jean's on the live stream, so thank you, Jean. That was beautiful. Sandy was a teenager when the Arnolds decided to call Lincoln home. She attended Lincoln Northeast High School, where she met and fell in love with Paul. Sandy married Paul Eugene Myers on November 2nd, 1964, in Tallahassee, Florida. In 1966, they graduated from Lincoln Adult Education High School. And now for the rest of the story, as told to me by Paul. So I'm not sharing any secrets that he didn't ask me to share. They were just 16 years old when they fell in love. Sandy caught Paul's eye in English class. She was beautiful, and he loved the way her nose crinkled when she smiled. He even went so far as to tell his friends, "That's the one. That's the girl I'm going to marry." Sometimes you just know, don't you, Paul? And Paul knew immediately she was the girl for him. To get her attention, one day when they were leaving their English class, he followed her up the stairs to her next class, intentionally stepping on the heel of her shoe so be pulled down. And then she'd quickly fix it and kept climbing the stairs. But after the third time, she looked back at him like she was going to hit him with his purse, which she well deserved, when it finally dawned on her that Paul was flirting with her. When they got to the top of the stairs, headed to their next class, Paul grabbed her books and took her hand in his. Little did they know, it was the beginning of a 58-year love affair. When the couple discovered Sandy was expecting, they immediately wanted to get married. However, there was just one problem. Since they were only 16 years old, the state of Nebraska would not allow it, without the permission from both parents. Knowing neither of their parents would well, at least readily agree to give their permission, the young couple started researching. Now, these are in the days before Google, so they had to do some real researching. Began researching how to get around the problem. They discovered they could get married in either Washington State or Florida. Well, since it was late fall, getting cold here in Nebraska, they decided to travel to warm and sunny Florida. To avoid their parents' ability to track them down, they bought tickets under assumed names. Once in Florida, they registered at the hotel under different names again. They were hell-bent on not taking any chances of their parents discovering them or their whereabouts. Paul admitted it was difficult to keep up with the lies and the names and everything that was going on, and the where and the when and who. But mission accomplished, they were married. They returned to Lincoln, where they were surprised at how accepting their parents were, especially when they were, well, maybe it was because they were informed that there wasn't anything they could do about it. So it was accepted, and that was it. One of their favorite songs is a 60s classic. In tribute to their love for one another, let's take a few moments now to listen to this movingly beautiful love song sung by Roberta Flack. Everyone in this room knows that Sandy was a go-getter. Paul says if she wasn't producing something, she was upset. He fondly remembers the time they moved into a home that was bare bones. Nothing but the walls existed. For 2 months, they stored everything in the garage, including their clothes. And it was winter. Nothing wakes you up faster than rummaging through boxes in a cold garage on a frigid winter morning. The restoration of the house was a team project. Her dad did all of the wiring, Paul did the plumbing, and not to be outdone, Sandy did all the duct work. Yep, that's right, the HVAC. The man at the hardware store told her what she needed and how to do it. And by gosh, she got it done. Nothing fazed Sandy. The young couple were overjoyed when their daughter, Deborah, was born, followed by 2 boys, Troy and Trent. They were truly a family. To share her reflections about her mother's life, I'd like to invite Sandy's daughter, Deborah, to the podium. And also, I think after that, her son-in-law will say a few words, Jeffrey.
If I stand behind the podium, nobody will see me. That might be okay with me. I'll try it out here, and I'll put on my professor voice, and y'all hear me. I've been feeling very strange since Mom died. Not in the way you would expect, and not in the way I expected. This was a couple days ago, remember? I haven't been able to cry. I feel sad, I feel lost, but tears haven't come. A hospice bereavement counselor called to check in on me, and I told her I was most upset that I might be a sociopath since I hadn't yet cried. She said she did not think I was a sociopath if I wasn't one before Mom's death. She assured me tears will come when I least expect them, out of the blue. I started thinking about when I will be most likely to cry. Maybe at a funeral. Maybe on her birthday in February. Maybe Mother's Day. Maybe other holidays and birthday gatherings. Maybe an early spring day when Mom doesn't call me to tell me the swallows are back and working on a nest in their usual spot by the front door. Maybe I'll cry on an early summer day when a thunderstorm was predicted and Mom doesn't call to warn me of the impending tornado. Maybe a midsummer evening when I'm sitting on my front porch watching and listening to a thunderstorm, just like Mom liked to do. Maybe I will cry in the fall when the family meets at Wabunsee for a picnic and an afternoon hike. Maybe when I see an ad for an impressionist art show in a city to which Mom and I can't travel. Maybe I will cry when I'm on an antiquing trip on a gravel road outside a small town and I pass a cemetery where Mom would have made me stop.
follow that. This card, I'm going to talk about, I'm Jeff, son-in-law, married to Deb, so there's no confusion. I'm going to talk about gratitude and compliments. So gratitude, of course, is the quality of being thankful, and I'm very thankful for my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my parents, our families. Compliments, they help people be seen, acknowledged. It's a universal human need, compliments. I got this card at my work from Sandy and Paul because I got a new position, a job, 7 years ago. And look at that writing, geez. And it's, Jeff, we are so proud of you, happy for you. This is a job as a perfect fit for your strongest skill sets. And then just lists all these things, and I'm like, wow, what they think of me, what they think I can do. And I'm like, so I've kept this up on my desk. And, geez, I'm looking at my notes here. Cursive, you don't see that a lot anymore. Everybody's impressed. Wow, what is that writing? Well, that's called cursive. And she's a beautiful writer that way. So thoughtful compliments, and all the family knows this. On birthdays, underlines. She always had a card and underlined, and I have like 50 underlines in this. So we'd always go, oh, I got, but everybody'd always go, I got these many underlines. I've got this many. But there's quite a few on there. But just impressive. I like that. Just the thoughtfulness of it. I sent a thank you. My parents taught me that, send thank yous for that, and I appreciate it, really did. Christmases at the house, there's be piles of presents. You can't believe how many presents under the tree. The room would be full of presents. And she'd always put on the notes, sometimes from mom and dad, like to me or to whoever, but sometimes it'd be like, to Jeff, from someone who loves your art and your talent, or someone who likes your reading interest. And it's like, wow, that's a compliment, But then I was watching, and we do, unfortunately, because I'm the oldest, but they do youngest to oldest, and we go around in a circle. And I just kind of observe everybody, and she always paid attention, especially when it was the present that they were opening. And as soon as they opened it, like if I got a book, she'd tell me why she got that book, and it would be, wow, they just put a lot of thought into the presents. And like I said, the compliments like that. Very appreciative of that. Said why you got your presents. I'm grateful because probably 2 years ago, we're sitting there. I don't even know where we were at, but I just remembered, I go, man, I need to tell you, this card gives me that boost. You just look at it and you go, man, she knew what I am. I mean, some of it I'm like, yeah, I'm like, it really is this what I am? And it maybe it isn't, but man, I could put this on for a job interview or anything. I could take this in there and say, hey, just the thought that goes into it. So I really appreciate it. I let her know that, which I'm glad I did. I wish I would have done it more. That's grateful. I was grateful for that. I let her know. I guess the point of the story is try to give more compliments. Make them thoughtful, make them sincere, make them nice. Don't be like the compliment after this eulogy where they go, one of my brothers will go, gee, that was the worst eulogy ever, But make them nice. When you get a compliment, respond to the compliment. Make sure they know, even a thank you, but just make sure you respond to the compliment. It says here that research shows giving gratitude-based compliments in particular correlates with greater levels of optimism, satisfaction, and happiness. Compliments create positive energy. Like gifts, giving can benefit the giver and the recipient. So everyone try to be more like Sandy. Thank you, Sandy, and thank everyone for coming today. Thank you.
We can all hope that someday a son-in-law says such nice things about any one of us. So thank you. That's beautiful. I love the card. We just never know. The simplest things can mean the most. We fret and we worry about, all the stuff in life, but it's that right there, a handwritten note that makes all the difference. Well, Sandy was overjoyed when she finally had grandkids to play with and to spoil and buy all those presents for. She was a regular part of her grandchildren's lives from the time they were babies. As they grew up, Sandy shared her love of camping, biking, camping, swimming, canoeing, traveling, and working outdoors with them. When she and Paul bought 60 acres near Raymond in the late 90s, she was ecstatic. She finally had miles of trails to walk, plenty of land to tend, and a lake of her own. The farm was the perfect place for the family to gather for holidays, birthdays, and to fish in a canoe. Sandy kept a log of all the species of birds and waterfowl that she spied on the property and probably called Debbie about it. She loved having grandkids overnight at the farm so they could have root beer floats for dinner and howling contests with the coyotes. There are countless stories of adventures shared with her grandchildren. She loved the country. She especially enjoyed inspiring her grandchildren to love nature and the great outdoors in the same way she did. One of her favorite activities was taking them to explore the fields, trees, and hills near 134th and Holdridge. Once there, they'd begin their exploration, observing the habitat in the area, never knowing what they may find. For example, one time on their adventure, they were privileged to watch baby snakes hatch from their eggs. Hopefully the mama wasn't anywhere nearby. Proving that experiencing nature is much better than reading about it in a book. Another fond remembrance was she and two of her grandchildren laid on the driveway one summer at night, taking in the night sky and the abundance of nature surrounding them. On one of those nights, they had fun watching toads eat bugs. As they watched the bugs crawl around the toads, the kids were awestruck at how fast the tongues of the toads could catch their prey. Time spent with Grandma Sandy was always unforgettable, filled with new adventures, lots of fun and tasty treats. Now, I'm told by her two sons that she was always trying to, do them in on all these ventures. So I know their stories. I know they were unable to say anything, but yeah, they've got a lot of those stories. So at the reception, you might want to ask them. Songs have a way of speaking for us when words fail to convey the depth of our feelings. Sandy was the sunshine in her children and grandchildren's lives, and they in hers. Once again, let's pause as we listen to one of Sandy's favorite songs. And by the way, these are songs that she specifically chose to celebrate her life. Sandy earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in May 1988 from the University of Nebraska after being a part-time student for 17 years. That's determination. On the day of her graduation, she had 17 years inscribed on her mortarboard. She was a psychology major with minors in English and sociology as well. While the kids were in preschool, Sandy began volunteering at the Easter Day Rec Center as a preschool teacher so she could be with the kids while they were in the program. She impressed the center staff with her energy, creativity, and organizational skills, and soon was hired part-time, then eventually accepted a full-time position. Sandy's job at Parks and Recreation grew into a career when she earned a promotion to Director of Easter Day Recreation Center. She continued to move up the ranks until she was Assistant Director. She retired in 2014 after 44 years with the Parks and Rec. During her tenure at Parks and Rec, Sandy was responsible for programming and operation of all city recreation centers, swimming pools, ball fields, and the Chet Ager Nature Center. She organized programming for special needs individuals and all ages from elementary age to senior citizens. She helped design and supervise construction of the F Street Recreation Center and the Star City Shores Swimming Pool. In 2009, she dreamed up Uncle Sam Jam, the city's July 4th pre-fireworks activities. Sandy was admired and respected by those she connected with through her job. Peggy Abthorpe, the longtime supervisor at Aging Partners, shared these words on the Wyuka website. Sandy was one of the first people I met when I started working with the city. She was a ball of fire, passionate about her work and very kind. I got to know her better when she started coming into Aging Partners Fitness Center. She was an intelligent and lovely person. I feel honored that I was able to know all of you, her family, including her dogs, Lucky and Tucker. My thoughts and prayers are with all of you at this sad time. I do think she is up there playing with Lucky and the other dogs and family members and friends who preceded her. I would say rest in peace, Sandy, but I don't see her doing that. Tracy Foreman, a longtime city employee and fitness instructor at Aging Partners, shared the following with me. She epitomized what every employee, supervisor should be: kind, generous, loving, and very genuine. Tracy and Peggy both remember Sandy, Paul and Deborah coming into the fitness center, along with Lucky and then Tucker. They had dog treats at the ready for the Australian Shepherds. And both of those dogs knew exactly where to find them in Peggy's office. I know there are several of her former staff and coworkers here today. Would any of you like to share a short, simple story about Sandy? You can just come up here if you'd like, or I know there's a lot of stories. Oh, yes, back there. Oh, Tracy. I just mentioned your name.
Hi, everybody. Sandy used to come to our fitness center along with Deb and along with Paul. And all I want to say is that girl could rock that elliptical. I have never seen anybody go so long. I couldn't do more than 20 minutes most of the time, and she could be on there up to 2 hours at times. So she was one strong, dedicated, committed woman, and so we're really going to miss her.
Thank you, Tracy. Anyone else? I don't want to miss anybody. Well, Sandy retired on a Friday, and on Sunday, she and Paul were headed to Vancouver to begin their grand Alaskan adventure. During their 3-week Alaskan trip, one of the most hair-raising experiences was at the Dawson City Airport. Paul will never forget it. It was a new airport with a gravel runway. They were on the first 737 to land and take off at Dawson City in the Yukon. When they boarded the plane, the back and front rows of the seats were taped off, so only the middle seats were available. They were told the reason was to balance the plane for its landing and takeoff. That may have been their first sign. It proved to be a hair-raising experience, and so because when the plane took off, its wheels didn't clear the runway until they were about 1 foot from crashing into the Yukon River. That seemed to be a theme of Sandy's life. She's shooting herself. She's, making havoc for the kids. I think she was a dangerous woman. Upon surviving Alaska, they set out to explore Europe, from Budapest to Amsterdam to Paris, Venice, and Rome, which the last 3 were her favorites. All of them were pleasurable and unforgettable experiences, ones that Paul will forever hold near and dear to his heart. On Sunday, January 15th, 2023, Sandy left the adventures of this world to go on a grand excursion of the universe. She was 74 years old. Her family includes her husband, Paul, her siblings, Ralph Arnold of Independence, Missouri, Mark Arnold of Rockford, Illinois, Shirley Patrick and her husband, Doug of Sioux City, Iowa, Jean Arnold of Wellington, New Zealand, and children Deborah Cosgrove and her husband, Jeffrey, her son, Troy Myers and his wife, Sandra, and son, Trent Myers and his wife, Holly, all of Lincoln. She was blessed with 8 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. She was preceded in death by her mother and father. Before concluding the service, the Myers family has asked me to please remind you that you're invited to join them at the committal service here at Wyuka Cemetery. We'll process over there immediately following this service. And if you don't care to do that, you may proceed directly to the reception, which is at the Ald Rec Center, which is located in Antelope Park near 28th and 8th Street. The reception is a time of food and fellowship and to share those abundance of stories that we couldn't possibly get in here all today, this afternoon. Well, as a final reflection on Sandy's life, I'd like to share a quote from her favorite author, Omar Khayyam, an 11th century astronomer, poet of Persia. One of her most coveted possessions was his book of poetry titled The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, and I hope I'm saying all that's correctly. And here's the quote. To friends and ache, to foes, to kindness show, no kindly heart, unkindly deeds will go. Harshness will alienate a bosom friend, and kindness reconcile a deadly foe. This poem was, and others like it, were not merely words to Sandy, she lived them. She was a kind, lovely, generous, and loving person to all who knew her. May you be inspired by her life and keep her spirit alive in this world by following her example. Be more of what you admired about her. Be adventurous, be kind, be grateful, be complimentary, be willing to learn a new skill, be a lover of nature and animals, be an explorer, be a doer, be daring, be a loving spouse, parent, and grandparent, and most certainly, be fun. And another inspiration of Omar's that I believe Sandy would encourage is this. This life is eternal. This is all that youth will give you. It is a season for wine, roses, family, and friends. Be happy for this moment. This moment is your life. Sandy's translation, life is short. Make fun of it. Once again, on behalf of Sandy's family, thank you for supporting them today with your kind presence. And now our last song, The Rose.